This is One Sentence News, a daily podcast featuring 3 news stories with a sentence-long summary and 1 sentence of context apiece. I'm Colin Wright. This is a sponsored message. I've been using Anchor as my podcast host for a while now, and it's been a pleasure to use. Anchor offers benefits that most other hosts do not. It's free to use, but it also has a collection of tools that allow you to create a podcast completely within the Anchor website or smartphone app. They distribute your show to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other distribution channels without any additional effort on your part, and you can make money from your podcast without any minimum audience size. So you can use it as a more traditional podcast host like I do, but it's also got everything you need to start a podcast from scratch. If you're keen to give it a shot, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. It's Friday, September 30th, 2022. Let's talk about the news. From Reuters, U.S. candidate beats Russian to head UN tech agency. An election to see who will become the next head of the International Telecommunication Union, or ITU, has finished, with an American receiving 139 out of 172 possible votes, and her Russian rival receiving just 25. I did a Let's Know Things podcast episode on this election back in April, because although it's a little arcane seeming, the ITU sets global standards for all sorts of new communications-related technologies, which means whomever is in charge helps shape what things like the internet will look like in the future. And the concern was that the Russian candidate could have nudged things toward more internet fracturing and isolated splinter nets like the ones that exist in Russia and China, while the American candidate who won will be able to push things in a more international, open, and collaborative direction. From the Detroit Free Press, GM steps back on new return-to-office policy after backlash from salaried workers. A recently announced return-to-office policy is being backpedaled by the folks in charge at General Motors, following significant backlash. The General Motors CEO has said she still intends to have salaried employees return to the office regularly, probably 3 days a week, but the memo outlining this policy was sent out on a Friday afternoon, which wasn't received well. Some people felt it was a significant shift that would require more planning before implementation, while others have said that a move back to pre-pandemic office work makes little sense in the first place. For the past 2 years, most GM employees have worked mostly or entirely from home, similar to many other large corporations. Pushback has also been reported at other companies trying to bring their employees back to offices. And though companies that have forced the issue have seen significant numbers of employees quit, it's anyone's guess if that will remain the case, as the economy tightens and the number of available jobs decreases, while unemployment rates increase. And from the New York Times, historic flooding slams Florida as Ian turns toward the Carolinas. Hurricane Ian has become Tropical Storm Ian and weakened quite a lot after bisecting Florida, and an early tally of the damage from its arrival and passage is already looking pretty grim. About 500 people have had to be rescued from floodwaters. Officials suspect there will be many deaths, but it may be a while before we have a sense of those numbers. Entire portions of some coastal cities have been destroyed. More than 2.5 million locals still don't have power, and the storm is expected to become a hurricane again before returning to strike the South Carolina coast sometime today. This storm system is unusual in many ways, but many climate experts are pointing at it as a good example of the new normal as ocean temperatures rise, atmospheric humidity increases, and our previous norms are upended and replaced with norms defined by a lot of previously unusual things, arriving at a disconcertingly regular and massively destructive cadence. If you're finding some value in One Sentence News, consider leaving a quick review wherever you get your podcasts and/or sharing the show with a friend. You can find out more about this show or subscribe to the email version at onesentencenews.com, and you can support this and other related projects like the Let's Know Things and Brain Lenses podcasts at understandery.com.